Have you ever wondered why there are so many highways? Like the veins and arteries of a grand pulsing nation, highways crisscross our landscapes. But what if I told you that these highways are part of an elaborate Ponzi scheme, with you at the bottom of the pyramid? Over the decades and at tremendous expense, our streets have turned into an ever-expanding concrete roller coaster, with the occasional bike lanes and pedestrian walkways where one can play a real-life game of Frogger. But, unlike the game, there are no revibes here. This comes at a huge societal and personal cost to you, and more likely than not, you were blissfully unaware. Who built this intricate web? Where do you fit in? And just how deep does this rabbit hole go? Get ready to see the Matrix and get mad every time you get on the road. Cause if I get mad, everyone else needs to get mad. So listen up. Welcome to CityPulse. This video was inspired by a selection of books found on Audible. For a limited time, claim your free 3-month trial today. Click on the link in the description or scan the QR code. It all started with a man called Alfred P. Sloan, former president and CEO of GM. In the 1930s, Alfred was feeling a little anxious because road construction was moving too slowly if he wanted everyone in America to have a car. So he rallied the troops, the road builders, tire makers, oil barons, those who would profit from more roads just like him. And in 1932, they formed what is now called the American Highway Users Alliance, an alliance with a single goal: build more roads. But how do you convince the government to invest more in road construction? This is where the genius of the American Highway Users Alliance comes into play. Instead of trying to persuade countless local politicians and citizens, they zeroed in on a select few influential individuals in the federal government. Their grand strategy can be boiled down to a 3-pronged approach. Step 1. They had to find the right angle to get politicians on board, pick the right time that would make their plan seem smart, and the perfect phrasing to win public support. Step 2. Activate the unlimited money glitch. They needed to get access to the biggest cave of wonders possible. They needed to be a part of the US federal budget. Step 3. Profit. Once they had the funding and the public support, the profits would inevitably follow. A clever plan indeed. But would it work? In their first attempt, they chose the angle of helping the poor farmer. And so their first stated mission was to work for good all-weather roads in every state to get the farmers out of the mud. And it worked. In the same year, Congress passed a law giving $120 million to the states for road construction. That was a whopping $2.6 billion in today's money. In the spirit of the land of the free and the easily manipulated, they also decided to call these roads free roads, a term that was later replaced by freeways. This was important in convincing the government and the public to stop using tolls on roads. The public bought it hook, line, and sinker. In 1934, they got rid of the limits on how much money the government would give to road projects. But they didn't stop there. They also worked to ensure that highway funds were earmarked exclusively for highways. This meant that states and local governments could spend more on roads even if they couldn't afford it. And now, they would have greater access to the federal government's credit card, with the catch that they could only buy one particular product: highways. But still, they needed to convince people that highways were a good idea, that highways would connect faraway cities, making it easier for people to get in and out. This vision was shown in the GM main display at the 1939 New York World's Fair called Futurama. A little pesky multi-year world event happened that delayed their progress, but the blueprints for the interconnected America was quietly being drafted. Then in 1955, the Yellow Book was released, outlining the paths these future highways would take to penetrate city centers. In the same decade, key figures from General Motors and DuPont got into positions of influence. The head of GM became the Secretary of Defense, advocating for more highways in the name of national security. That same year, a member of the DuPont family with substantial stake in GM assumed the role of head of federal highways. Their collective efforts resulted with the passage of the 1956 Federal Aid Highways Act, which authorized a 41,000-mile interstate highway system. integrated thousands of miles of existing toll roads into the system, decided that the highway system was to be toll-free and 90% of construction cost will be paid by the federal government, when before it was about 50-50. Finally, the vision of the American Highway Users Alliance came true. The pyramid scheme got the ultimate green light. State and city politicians agreed to these plans for a few reasons. One was that they thought highways would bring people from the suburbs into the city. The other is urban renewal, in which lower income communities would have their private property rights thrown out by getting pushed out of their private properties, their family homes destroyed and paved over. The details of that are a whole other video that I plan to tackle soon. But if you're interested in getting ahead of class, I highly recommend reading the book The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. His eye-opening book reveals how cities became radically divided not through individual prejudice, income differences, or actions of private institutions like banks or real estate agencies, but through government policies, which promoted discrimination through the creation of officially segregated public housing, the demolition of integrated neighborhoods, and the federal subsidies for builders on the condition that no homes be sold to African Americans. Unfortunately, I'm often busy and can't sit down to read a lot, but listening to books has been a game changer. That's why I use Audible. I can listen to books while riding my bike, in the car, at the gym, even while picking up my dog's poop in the backyard. Thanks to a limited time offer, get Audible for free, not for 1 month, but 3 months. Yay! You can listen to thousands of titles all you want, wherever you want. And best of all, get a free book each month with Audible Premium Plus. Claim your free trial today. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code. Now let's get back to the video. The American Highway Users Alliance has had a major role in changing the fabric of American society while making its members Scrooge McDuck levels of money. On October 14, 1992, the interstate highway system was finished with the opening of the I-70 through Glenwood Canyon in Colorado. The initial cost estimate for the system was $25 billion over 12 years. It ended up costing $114 billion or $597 billion in 2022 dollars and took 35 years. Was their work Sauron levels of evil? No, we do need roads. But is it possible to have too much of a good thing? I would say so. Economists call this diminishing returns, meaning that your first cat gives you tremendous amount of joy and entertainment, cat 2 a little less, cat 3 maybe a smidge more, and with cat 4 and more, you're flirting with being a crazy cat lady. And America is in the thick of crazy cat lady territory. Mostly everything in life benefits from diversity. From a forest with a rich ecosystem, to your investment portfolio, to a mall food court. But I think the United States is far from having a diverse environment when it comes to your freedom of choice in transportation. It's either have a car or get wrecked, the implication of which deserves its own video. But here is where the Ponzi scheme takes shape. Most of us don't know how much infrastructure costs, or how we pay for it. We trust that our tax dollars cover it. But if our taxes covered it, we wouldn't be hearing stories like this.
Our roads and bridges are crumbling, our airports are out of date, and the vast majority of our seaports are in danger of becoming obsolete, all the result of decades of neglect.
One easy, popular method of avoiding the problem is build, build, build. Why bother fixing what you have when the grass is always greener on the other side? Developments keep popping up on the outskirts of cities time and time again. Why? Because land is cheaper and adding to pre-existing infrastructure systems is easier. Land developers get to make a profit, the homeowners get a fancy newly built home, and the city gets a new tax base to draw from. Win-win-win, right? Not true. We've built a system that thrives on short-sighted goals without considering the long-term consequences. At the top of the pyramid sits an alliance composed of land developers and road construction companies who reap the benefits of government funding, subsidies, and tax breaks. They're joined by politicians who eagerly facilitate their arrangement in exchange for campaign donations and favors. And lurking nearby are the car companies, eagerly further chaining up their client base and locking in new customers, not out of loyalty or desire, but out of necessity. Just below them are the homeowners of the newly developed areas, blissfully unaware of the coming maintenance costs that they'll have to face as their home ages, all while using infrastructure they don't fully pay for. Further down are those that can't afford new developments or downtown living. They are the people trapped somewhere in between, with aging, poorly maintained infrastructure. At the bottom lie the poor, the renters, and those that still live with their parents. They don't own a home, yet they pay for other homeowners' infrastructure. They don't have money for a house down payment, yet they're chained to the money pit that is car ownership. This Ponzi scheme, much like its counterparts, relies on an ever-expanding base to sustain itself. For decades, it thrived as the American population and economy grew, funneling money into more highways, more subsidies, and more reliance on cars. But like all Ponzi schemes, the seeds of its destruction were created at its origin. The pyramid was built on quicksand, an illusion of wealth. We might think everything's going great because we see cities growing and developing. We might even believe we're on the brink of success ourselves. But what we don't realize is the way we're building our cities is actually costing us a lot of money in the long run. And after decades of doing this, the long run is now. Picture a developer approaching a city with a piece of land they wish to develop. They promise to pay and build the roads, streetlights, sewerage, and water systems, then hand it over to the city to maintain. It sounds great for the city because they get new growth without spending a dime, so they agree. This keeps happening as highways expand, opening new frontiers for development further and further from the city center. Let's say the city's smart and saves the money for future maintenance. A generation out, and it's time to dip into the savings for normal maintenance. The city then finds that the total amount saved is not enough. Have this happen a few times with each new highway and old new developments, and the city will quickly be looking at bankruptcy. They have built so much that it's like slowly building a mansion that you can't afford the heating bill. The 1970s marked the second generation of the suburban sprawl. Americans borrowed huge amounts of money to fund new growth, both publicly and privately. By the time the third generation rolled around, lenders had to resort to, let's say, exotic methods to get people in new homes. And so the seeds of the 2008 housing crisis were born, a crisis which we still are feeling the effects of today. And it all traces back to a powerful highway lobby group created by GM over 90 years ago, pulling the overpowering strings of government. The American Society of Civil Engineering says that we're sitting on a ticking time bomb of unfunded infrastructure maintenance, estimated in the trillions of dollars. And that's just for infrastructure, not smaller stuff like streets, pipes directly serving our homes. Every city has a backlog of maintenance tasks, promises, with no clear way to pay for them. In many suburbs, only about 20% of the needed infrastructure funds are covered. This isn't sustainable without raising taxes significantly. And I don't know about you, but I like getting taxed about as much as I like getting lectured by my mom. So what should we do? Even if taxes were raised to ridiculous levels or we experience an economic boom, most of the country wouldn't break even. One possible solution is to invest in revitalizing city centers by creating more walkable neighborhoods with mixed-use housing developments and improving public transportation options. This would reduce the reliance on highways and sprawling developments that have become the norm. Living in walkable cities or towns means you can step out of your front door without fearing for your safety and helps cut down on the number of cars on the road. And for the times when you need to travel further than walking distance, trains and buses can help shoulder the load, especially for people unable to afford the financial black hole that is car ownership. Don't be fooled by the idea that cars equal freedom. The best cage is one you can't see, and the truth is, the car industry has trapped many of us in such a cage. They've done a great job of convincing us that we need cars for independence, when in reality, they're just pushing their own agenda. Experts point out that the root problem lies in the fact that most roads are free to use and subsidized by the government. Every economist will tell you that when something is made cheaper and more convenient, people will use it more than necessary. Just think about how you snatch up freebies at fairs and conventions, pens, cups, bags, only to stash them away and never use them again. If you had to pay for those items, you'd probably think twice about taking them home, reducing your tendency to hoard or overconsume. Expanding highways not only starves transit systems of money for more efficient ways of getting around, like mass transit, but it also leads to even more traffic. Widening highways may provide temporary relief, but it only encourages more people to drive, ultimately leading to more traffic and canceling any initial benefits. Widening does not work because time and time again, highways have the "if you build it, they will come" rule, or more well known as the induced demand rule. So despite the billions spent on road expansion, we end up with decades of road closures, a brief reduction in traffic followed by even worse congestion, and an astronomical maintenance bill. Thinking you are one lane away from solving traffic is like thinking you are one credit card away from financial stability. It's only a temporary illusion, yet we keep paying with the plastic and getting nothing in return. A recent example of these failed plans is Los Angeles' billion-dollar project to widening the Sepulveda Pass stretch of the I-45 and the colossal I-10, also known as the Katy Freeway, in Texas. After a $2.7 billion expansion project in 2008, it now boasts 26 lanes, leaving competitors like the I-75 in Atlanta with 15 lanes and the 405 in Los Angeles with 14 lanes in the dust. With all these lanes, you would expect to zoom from one end of the city to the other in minutes. Instead, all these expansions have made commute times worse, turning rush hour into a glorified parking lot. We're stuck in a system devised and promoted by the auto, oil, and road construction industry. A system nurtured and maintained by our governments, which becomes like a drug dependency for cities and towns, and any attempt to quit cold turkey would send them into severe withdrawal. This is a system that you, me, and your grandkids will be paying for decades to come. A system that condemns you to car payments, car insurance, oil changes, wheel rotations, drunk driving, traffic jams, air pollution, government licensing, traffic stops, standing in the DMV, all while car companies profit from holding their customer base hostage, road construction companies enjoy billion-dollar gravy train from Uncle Sam, and the politicians receive a campaign donation for giving them access to the biggest treasure chest this world has ever seen. A treasure chest made up of your tax dollars and a credit card with all our names on it. Unfortunately, the US government seems deaf to anything besides the roar of highway construction. In November 2021, Joe Biden signed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the largest infrastructure expenditure in US history, allocating $350 billion over 5 years to highway programs. The real kick in the teeth with this is the opportunity cost of all this, or what else you could have gotten with all that tax money they're taking from you while you're at the bottom of the pyramid. We could have improved education, tackled homelessness, provided better healthcare, and maybe more missiles to send to your favorite country, or more missiles to drop off at your least favorite country. Or maybe even kept it in the transportation pipeline, just with a different angle than highways. It could mean better bike lanes that actually take more effort than paint on the floor that will 100% save Beer Can Joe's F-150's paint job from your blood getting all over it when he accidentally goes into the bike lane. Or rapid transit buses that you could take downtown on the weekends to meet your friends at the bars and relive your 20s as you hear your knees pop when you try to drop it low. Or maybe, just maybe, a train system that you can take from city to city without having to worry about getting a rental car or an Uber at your destination. Your imagination is the only limit to what could be possible. What is keeping you from this possible world is those in power who are in the pockets of the car, oil, and road construction industry. Get involved in local anti-highway expansion groups if your community is facing new highway projects. Speak up at City Hall and let your local officials know what you want for your community. They might not know about all the possible solutions, or they might lack the political will to implement them without citizen support. Be brave, be bold, and don't just complain about why your city's boring, why you hate sitting in traffic, and why your taxes keep rising. Instead, take action to push for a better future for your community. If enough of us do it, we can make it happen. We don't need a majority. We just need a dedicated, passionate minority.